Well, last year, and I know this feels like a lifetime ago, but Project 2025 was talked about by everyone on the campaign trail. Democrats tried to say that this is an authoritarian playbook that Donald Trump can use to upend American society and the federal government, while Trump himself said, no, that's the Heritage Foundation. I had nothing to do with it. And now, nearly 100 days into Trump's term in office, the answer isn't quite so clear on who was right about this policy mandate. Of the 130 executive actions Trump has taken since January, the bulk of them certainly appear copy and pasted from that 900-page book. I'm talking things like rolling back federal DEI programs, barring trans athletes from competing in women's sports, the whole deportation agenda, tearing down the Department of Education, and of course, taking a chainsaw to the federal workforce. But there's a number of huge provisions within Project 2025 that Trump is taking the opposite path. Think about tax reform. Project 2025 wanted to simplify the tax code, and Donald Trump is certainly not doing that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if Trump is working off the Project 2025 playbook because we've seen the negative impacts his policies have had on the economy, which really, we know, runs politics.
And that always should have been, like, I understand that 2024 was just such a weird fever dream because of everything that happened with Joe Biden melting down, Kamala Harris becoming the nominee without a single public vote. Like, so obviously it left Democrats and the entire media apparatus around it, like, sort of searching, how do you even fight this, defend this? There were so many moving parts that garnered way more attention. And now I can totally say in retrospect, I was not fear-mongering enough about the tariff proposals, right? Obviously, Trump has gone above and beyond what he ever proposed. It was the most extreme example he proposed was the 10% universal tariff. And we know that will have incredibly distortionary effects, not just on, you know, direct imports and the direct lived economy, but also, as we'll get more into, the bond market and how we finance our national debt. We're already seeing the immediate ramifications of that. But the odd thing with Project 2025 is it was, in essence, an ego project for Kevin Roberts, the new Heritage Foundation president, who, like, ironically, as Heritage became this national boogeyman, made the Heritage Foundation in D.C. command less respect and less influence than it ever has in its 50 years, right? And you can see that in the text of Project 2025. It's a Frankenstein's monster of various contributors. And, like, so for instance, there's a portion on baby formula that was written by the CEO of the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which is a massively, like, libertarian institute. And so that chapter, which is quite good, correctly points out we have 15 to 17% tariffs on baby formula imports. And as we saw in, like, that 2022 baby formula shortage that really harmed a lot of parents, especially moms, and he was proposing, you know, deregulating the industry, making it easier so we just have the same standards as the Europeans. Compare that to what RFK Jr. is doing at HHS, where he's simultaneously saying, we're going to have Operation Stork Speed, where we're going to massively crack down on baby formula, and also we're firing 6 workers in the FDA's Division of Food Processing Science that is specifically responsible for making sure that baby formula is safe. So, like, be careful what you wish for, libs, because we might have been better off if they had stuck to some of the Project 2025 suggestions.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly, this is not it.
I think this whole exercise has sort of shown me that Democrats made a major strategic choice last year. They tried to campaign against a hypothetical policy plan, which, for the record, Heritage puts this out every general election cycle.
It's just called the mandate for leadership. This time was only weird because they did it before the election.
Correct. And, like, Donald Trump, the Democrats would have been better served campaigning off exactly what Donald Trump says. And to your point, you should have fear-mongered about the tariffs more. They should have said, over the last 10 years, Donald Trump has proven, even the crazy stuff he says, he's going to try to work on. So why do we need to project on something else? And I understand that the abortion, you know, component of this was a major, you know, driving force behind, we need to animate the vote. We need to get similar turnout to like we did in the midterm elections, where the Dobbs decision clearly had an impact on that cycle.
But who is your average midterm voter versus your median general election voter, right? The midterm voters tend to be these higher propensity, higher educated voters who can have, I mean, let's be real, abortion to a large extent, it's a luxury belief to have heavy salience for that issue. like, I'm not saying, like, of course, I'm pro-life. And, like, I understand, like, and so I like pro-life candidates. But if that is your number one issue, either in favor or against, that's a luxury belief.
Yeah.
Most voters cannot afford to care more about climate change or abortion than they can about inflation and employment.
Pun intended. Voters can't afford to think about anything other than the economy.